Hey everybody, it's Monday. I'm the Prez, Lawrence Presman, co-founder of Wager Talk Media, and today's show, the NFL opening line report for Week 8. Can't believe we're already 8 weeks into the NFL season. My co-founder, my partner in arms, one of my best buds, Marco D'Angelo, joining us today. I'm excited to have him, and we're going to go through every game on the board for Week 8, take a look, and give our thoughts on what we think initially and where we think the line's going to go. I'll bring Marco in now. Mr. D'Angelo, good sir, how are you today, brother?
Doing good, Prez. Monday morning, finished the battle of another week. I can honestly say, if everything's full transparency here, I finally did have a losing week this week, Prez. I went 3-5 in football. Saturday was just a rough day. We went 2-2. You say rough day, 2-2. I lose a game by a field goal with Northern Illinois. My quarterback out in the second quarter. And then the other game, we lose by a half a point with Florida State. So what was a 2-2 day could have easily been a 4-0 day, 3-1 day. And then the one of my two winners, though, full disclosure, what an exciting game. And I'll be honest, I hate to admit this, I didn't know of this particular rule change. Did you see the North Carolina-Virginia Tech game on Saturday, Prez? 6 overtimes.
Yes.
Okay, but there's a new rule this year. After the fifth overtime, or I believe in the fifth overtime, you go for 2. I mean, you always went for 2 before in the old one, but that was after a touchdown. Now they just line you up at the 2-yard line to go for the 2-point conversion, and it's one play. You make the 2-point conversion, and it's like a shootout in hockey. You keep going until somebody doesn't do it, and there was a lot of chatter on Twitter, and I didn't even realize it, and then I'm sitting there saying, well, I can't lose now. I have Virginia plus 3.5. It doesn't matter because they're going to be awarded the 2-point conversion. So the gambling gods, I think, finally made a rule change that makes sense because, excuse me, but damn it, if you've got an underdog and you're in the 6th overtime, you should win that game, okay? The underdog was the right side. So finally there's a rule that when you get to those 5th and 6th overtimes and beyond, you're not going to lose if you got a dog that's getting more than 2 points.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
Yeah, no, Marco, it's funny because I went to the Toronto Maple Leaf game on Saturday night, and I actually bet Virginia Tech plus 3.5, so I was constantly watching the scores. And the score ended, and I could be wrong here, but I think it was 43-41.
Yes.
I didn't understand what happened because a safety would be really impressive given that they start at the 25 on the other side of the field. Well, like when you pick the guy up. But I actually have a question for you, speaking of picking the guy up. I can't remember what game it was. I think it might have been the Detroit Green Bay game, but or maybe it was the KC game, but there was a game where one of the teams ran through the hole. The other team defensively literally parted and just stood there hoping that the running back would run in so they would be down by 8 and get the ball back.
That was Detroit Green Bay last Monday night.
Yeah, and the Detroit guy just stopped like 1 yard out and went down on his knee. The question I had was, what would have happened if the defensive team would have just picked the guy up and walked him into the end zone?
I think the fact that it would be the same rule as the quarterback gave himself up.
Yeah, but what if they had picked him up before he went down, like while he was in the middle of running?
Wow, that would have been interesting. I never would have saw that happen. And it was the Detroit Green Bay game, and it was the Green Bay guy that went down. What would have really been funny is if they missed the field goal, though, because they still put it down that they had to kick a field goal. And how many extra points have we seen missed this year?
Yeah, I'm not okay. How many extra points have we seen missed that have helped me? None.
Okay, this is true, but fun stuff watching it. And you know what? Give the coach and the player, Green Bay, give them credit, Prez. Matt Patricia had the sense, and that's definitely being a disciple of Bill Belichick, because that's something Belichick would have done. If the only way you're going to get the football back with a chance to tie the game, and albeit it's going to be a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, but if you ain't getting the ball back, it's the only thing you can do. That's something Belichick would do, and Patricia let them do it. He called for his team, let them score, and give the Green Bay player enough credit to know the situation, and whether that was wired in to the headset to the quarterback in the huddle or not, I don't know. But give them credit; they did the right thing, and he went down, and Green Bay preserved the win, and that was. And that in Prez, and I don't want to rub salt in the wounds because I do know we were on opposite sides in that total Monday night. But that's a difference of when you're in a zone and running well, you catch breaks like that.
Yeah.
And I was on the under, and it gave me the win, and it obviously gave the people that had the over the loss. And we say that breaks have a way of evening themselves out over time.
We do not say that at all.
Well,
that is the most ridiculous statement in the world.
It doesn't seem that way, Prez, but you know what happens? And again, it goes to those streaks. When you're running good, stuff like that just naturally happens. When you're in a little bit of a slump, it seems that all of those things are going to happen.
Marco, I got to stop you. So I keep a tally of all turnovers.
You do. I get the update in text messages.
So,
he is not kidding, guys.
So I have 12 turnovers on the NFL season for me. So to give you an example, I was on the under in the Buffalo game yesterday. Miami threw a goal line interception. That would have been a turnover that went for me. I have 11 turnovers for me in 7 weeks. I have 40 turnovers against me. I'm 11 and 40 in turnovers against me on the year. I know we're 7 minutes in, we got to get to the show, but I had the under in Jacksonville yesterday. 25 points scored in the last quarter. 25 points. 3 turnovers, all against me. Do you know how hard it is to score 25 points in a quarter? It's almost...
Especially for Jacksonville.
It's almost impossible to score 25 points. The only way 25 points happens is with 3 touchdowns, 1 field goal, and a 2-point conversion. All in the last quarter. I had the under in the Buffalo game yesterday. Stone cold under. Then Miami throws an interception. Buffalo scores. Then Miami... gets 4th and 7, converts. Fitz gets almost sacked in the backfield twice to end the game, escapes. I had the under in San Diego yesterday.
Back up to the Buffalo game. Was the Buffalo game the one where they did the onside kick at the end of the game, and then the guy gets it right?
Yeah, that didn't mean anything to any of the lines, but that onside kick wouldn't have happened without the turnover. And then I had the under in the Charger game, the LA Charger game, 23 points in the final quarter as well. So yeah, that's how I roll. Let's get to it, bro. Washington going on the road playing Minnesota. We had an initial opening total of 40. It's up to 42. An initial opening line of 14. It's up to 16 at some points. I'm not touching this game, Marco.
Yeah, the situation with the look-ahead line, as you said, 14.5 last week with Minnesota. Line going up, and there's only one way for the line to go. Washington's coming off a shutout yesterday, getting shut out. Things are not good in Washington. Granted, they played in, an absolute monsoon. That field was just total shit yesterday with the rain, and the field in Washington doesn't hold water well at all. So, yeah, I expect this move. Does it get to 17? Probably if it gets to 17, you'll see a little bit of buyback from the Sharps just taking the number, but I don't want any part of it. And do you really trust laying that many points with a Minnesota Viking team coming off a couple big wins? They played Detroit yesterday, and even though that, the Lions weren't right behind them. It was a big win for Minnesota in the division. So careful with laying the big number with the Vikings. Is I would say the Vikings right now are a little fat and sassy, Perez.
Yeah, that seems about right. Something you would say. The
Hey, we got
Giants.
we got the money on bet on it yesterday. Probably the first time in my life that I cashed a ticket with a team that didn't score a point. We had Washington as the sandwich game yesterday. Plus, when I gave it out, it was plus 10. It closed at 9.5, and they lose 9-0. How about that? That's when you're running good, my friend. Whenever you can win a bet without scoring a point.
Yeah, I wouldn't know, Marco. That's for damn sure. New York Giants +7 on the road, total of 50 against Detroit. Where do you see this one going?
Well, we saw the look-ahead line was at 7.5 last week at the Westgate. Bring it out at 7, and that's the right place to bring this out. Detroit, that was a bad loss for them yesterday. Back-to-back losses for the Lions in games that they really had opportunities to win. They should have beat Green Bay. We all know that. And then yesterday, that final score was not as indicative. They were back and forth with Minnesota early in that game, and then it got out of hand late. Do I want to take Detroit? I don't trust them laying the points here. I can tell you this much, Prez. This will be one of the big teaser bets this week. Everybody will be teasing Detroit down for them just to win against the Giants. I will say this much for the Giants. They played in a rainstorm yesterday as well, and they did get back their key players. Barkley was back in the lineup yesterday. The wide receiver was back. Although the Giants did lose, they did put up some points yesterday, albeit against an Arizona defense that's not good. But don't rush to the Lions side because that was a crippling loss yesterday for them as far as the division goes. Minnesota's got a stranglehold right now, and they're looking up at 3 teams now, Detroit in the division. So things are not good in the Motor City.
Marco D'Angelo, co-founder of Wager Talk Media. You can find him at wagertalk.com. Guys, it's $9 Monday at Wager Talk and Sports Memo. Every play on the board for $9. And Marco, you've got your first NHL 5-star going tonight.
Yeah, Prez, this is a spot, I've been a big, since the Golden Knights came to Vegas, I'm a hockey fan. I found a sport that my wife, who likes no sports at all, and that's tough for her, being married to a guy that bets for a living. But when the Knights came to town, Prez, she just fell in love with this team. We started going to a few games, and then we ended up splitting season tickets with Brian Leonard, and so we're at the games all the time. So now I'm following hockey and the ebb and flow of it. And although I don't release many hockey plays, Prez, I'm a situational capper. And I've got a situation tonight in the NHL that is just a tremendous situation. And I've made my biggest bet that I've ever made on a hockey game, and I'm releasing it as a 5% play. And it's Monday. That's just the way the schedule played out. It's a Monday. Normally this game would be $40, but you're going to get it for $9 today. So I'm inviting everybody to head over to Wager Talk and check it out. When you read the analysis for the game, you'll understand the situation of why I like this play so much, and it's going to just absolutely click to you when you read it. So head over to Wager Talk. Check that out. $9 Monday at both Wager Talk and, as you like to say, our sister company, Sports Memo.
Never called it our sister company in my life.
I do.
Tampa Bay, dude. Off of a bye, going into Tennessee. Tennessee got really, really lucky with a win yesterday, and a win they had to have against the Chargers. We spoke off air about the ending of that game, and it was... Phillip Rivers is the most hard luck quarterback that I've ever seen in my life. But here we go. 46.5 is the total. 2.5 to Tennessee. 46.5 is a massive total for a Tennessee game and slightly low for a Tampa Bay game. This is an interesting game because we have two completely different styles in play. Where are you thinking this line might end, and what's the early look?
Well, I can tell you the early look for me on this one is seeing the game at 2.5, just like I did with the Chargers yesterday. This is a no-brainer for me. I'm going to be teasing this game up with the 6-point teaser and get it over the touchdown because Tennessee, as I said with the Chargers, I don't see this Tennessee team getting separation on anybody, Prez. Now, as far as the total goes, and the look-ahead line was 2.5. So they made no adjustment on this, and they shouldn't because Tampa Bay didn't play last week, so they couldn't improve or decline as far as perception goes. And as far as Tennessee goes, they were minus 2.5 last week, and they win by a field goal. And as you said, it was a lucky field goal win because at worst, they should have been going to overtime at worst. But the Chargers are supposed to score the touchdown there, and I actually thought they did twice. I don't know what camera angles they were looking at, and then they fumble the football and lose the game. This is a spot where I don't trust Tennessee. You had the new quarterback last week, so you had that little bit of a spark making the quarterback change. And that is part of the reason, Prez, I think that you're seeing a little bit different. You said this is kind of high total for a Tennessee game because we got to handicap the Tennessee games just slightly different. I think they have a little more confidence right now in Tannehill getting the job. Obviously, Mariota was benched because they weren't scoring points. So in comes, Tannehill. They score 23 points. Not a big improvement, but it was an improvement, and they got the W. So you will see a slight upward tick on the totals with Tennessee, but definitely when you're playing a Tampa Bay team, they have no defense. So anybody's going to be able to move the football. But the thing is, in a key to every Tampa Bay game, Prez, can you predict which Jameis Winston is going to show up? The one that's going to have a 300-yard day passing or the one that's going to have 3 interceptions? That's the problem. He is the most inconsistent.
Of course I can predict it.
Well, if you tell me which side you're on, then that'll help me.
Yeah, exactly. If I take Tampa Bay, then he's the Jameson Winston who throws 3 interceptions. And if I take Tennessee, he's 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
It's really that simple. There's no rocket science to this, Marco.
There isn't. But
Just
this is a
bet
spot
against
where,
me.
I don't want to do that, Prez, because I've seen your work before in the NFL. This is your sport. This in hockey, it's you're just getting the wrong bounce of the ball. It will turn. Trust me, it will even out. But this is a game for me right now. Whether I get involved in it as a side, I don't know, but I definitely will have Tampa Bay on teasers. I can tell you that.
Chicago minus 4.5 against the Chargers, total of 40. And what's interesting to me about this game, really, Marco, is, all things considered equal, I love the Chargers. I think, Chicago's going to really struggle all year to put points up. And the Chicago defense, this
LA Chargers.
This LA Chargers defense is not bad. The problem is the Chargers lost such a heartbreaker yesterday. They're now 2-5 on the season. It's slipping away. I don't know what their psyche is going to be.
The only thing I could say, and I agree with you, you broke that down perfectly, Prez. At 2-5, yesterday normally would have been a death sentence for them. But looking at the rest of the division, you've got themselves, you've got Denver, who's just a piece of shit right now. I mean, there's no other way to say it. If things are bad with Denver. And then the Raiders, you're looking up at Kansas City, but now that, Patrick Mahomes is going to be out for at least 3 weeks, they might have that little glimmer of hope that they won't throw the towel in here. But this is a must game. They can't lose another game. They got to make up some ground while Mahomes is out. So this is a game they got to get. But now they're going up against a really tough defense. And I'll tell you what, could you imagine the Chicago Bears if you could replace Trubisky and put a quarterback like Phillip Rivers behind center? How much better this team would be with that defense. Remember, that defense is on the field for the majority of the games because the offense can't sustain drives, and they're still a dominant defense until yesterday. And let's just go ahead and say everybody has Bill Belichick is the genius of the NFL, and I can't argue with that. But let's put Sean Payton as a close second. This guy has had to totally change his offensive game plan from Drew Brees to Teddy Bridgewater, and he went up against one of the best defenses in the NFL yesterday, and he made him look silly. And it was nothing downfield. It was a great called game with his play calls. They even ran a college football, option play that went for big yardage in the game. It's just he's pushing all the right buttons, and Chicago, I was on. That was one of my losers yesterday, and it was a trash play. They never had a shot in that game. So I don't want to lay 5.5 points with the Bears at all. I'm surprised that this line is this high. The look-ahead line was 6, and I think everybody was thinking when the look-ahead line came out that Chicago, they remembered the last game they had at home where they, 16-6 against Minnesota, that total domination game. But New Orleans made them look silly yesterday. So this is a game for me I'm not involved in right now, but I do think the Chargers would be the side I would have to look to getting that many points. In the Bears moving forward, Prez, they got to make a decision. I just don't see Mitchell Trubisky as the future for the Bears.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I mean, I'm not up to date on the Nick Foles injury, but I see him as a potential trade. I mean, I think Jacksonville has found their quarterback. But who knows, man? I'm not a general manager, and there never seems to be trades in this league, which is such a shame. Although Jalen Ramsey got traded last week, and he played outstanding yesterday. Just shut Julio Jones down. And speaking of Julio Jones, Atlanta at home playing Seattle. Very few lines up, but we do have Seattle -3.5 with a total of 54. I don't know what to make of this Atlanta team. It's one of the most baffling things I've ever seen. I mean, you look at the offense and the weapons that they have, and it goes to show you how important an offensive line is, because that's clearly what they're missing right now. Obviously, they have no defense either. I'm pretty sure I will not be touching that game.
Prez, yesterday, as I was watching the Falcons and Rams, and I got sucked into Atlanta for the last time. I texted, how me and you text back and forth during the games constantly. I have my one buddy, John, who we text back and forth during the games all the time. And I told him in the third quarter of the Atlanta game, I said, on my way home tonight, I'm stopping at the office store and buying a bunch of whiteout. And I'm going home and I'm getting my schedule book out for the rest of the season, and I'm getting the white out, and I am just whiting out Atlanta in the schedule the rest of the season. I want no part of this team because they do have so much offensive talent. It's insane the weapons that they have in the yardage and points that they can and should be producing on a weekly basis. Yet they find ways to lose games. And yesterday, I gave them one more shot just because, to me, I looked at the Rams as a desperate ball club. They lost 3 in a row. They went out and made wholesale changes, making trades. As you said, nobody makes trades during the season. They made trades to try to beef up their secondary that had been getting beat badly. And you got a guy coming in that got traded during the week and was going to start. That's not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to have a game like he had yesterday coming into a new team, and practicing just a few days. That's how bad things are in Atlanta. Then compound it now, Matty Ice gets hurt yesterday, and again, it's because of the offensive line. This guy was running for his life the entire game and took a hit, ankle injury. Don't know his status moving forward. Do you want the Atlanta Falcons with Matt Schaub behind center in their mindset? You know what you're going to get out of Seattle. Seattle's going to be a team that's going to get a lot of action this week because nobody's going to want the Atlanta Falcons, and I can't blame them. That'll be the most popular play on the board, and there's only one way that I see that line going. It's at 3.5 now. It will not go back down to 3. Even if they announce Matt Ryan, there's no way that it's going to go back down to 3 after they got trounced yesterday. So if you want Seattle, I tell you, get on them right now.
So what I'm hearing from you is Atlanta wins straight up this Sunday.
That's probably what would end up happening, Prez. And the one trend that has worked this year, and it's been gold, buddy. You take the injured player theory. When a quarterback, the star goes out, the backup comes in that first game. It's been money this year, and it's something that I've used for 40 years, Prez. But I just don't know that I could pull the trigger with Atlanta, but I also know I won't be betting against them.
New York Jets, they're playing tonight, so let's leave that game alone. Philadelphia going into Buffalo. Philly just looked all out of sorts last night, both defensively and offensively. Started the game off with 2 turnovers, which is a surprise given that I didn't bet Philadelphia. Usually teams save their turnovers. They're plus 1.5, 2 with a total of 43.5. And let's take apart that Buffalo game real quick yesterday. Buffalo did not look good. They put up 31 points. That's a phony 31 points.
Yep.
14 of those 31 points came off of turnovers. Of course, I was on the under. And Miami was able to move the ball on this vaunted Buffalo defense. Miami had put up like 5 touchdowns all year. They put up 3 yesterday. Of course, I was on the under. I got to tell you, Marco, I think this line is going to move in Philly's direction, and I think Philly's the play here.
Well, I can't say that that's not what's going to happen in this one. The look-ahead line was pick, and we had it come out at Buffalo 1.5. Now, I can tell you that at Buffalo at 1.5, there's going to an over-under of 43.5. This is an automatic EV play. You're supposed to take Philadelphia on the 6-point teaser and get it over the touchdown press. Now, I'm going to go back and dissect that Buffalo game for you as well. Buffalo's defense is for real, okay? I know it didn't look like it yesterday, but look at this. I have an adage that with these bye weeks, when you go into a bye week and you're on a roll, it's the last thing you want to do. It's a momentum stopper. And I realize that Buffalo, they had the one loss against New England, but everything else has been good. And they really should have and could have beaten New England in that game. So life in Buffalo was good right now. You have a week off, and you come out of the break, and you're playing the dismal Miami Dolphins. Buffalo was as flat as a pancake yesterday. And it's a game I considered taking Miami. I just didn't have the big enough stones to do it because Miami is so bad. But Miami played their game of the year, almost pulled the upset. All that serves for me is to get me line value this week and to get a very focused Buffalo team. Philadelphia's got some serious problems in the secondary. Now, granted, that game got out of control when it was 14-0, just a few minutes into the game with back-to-back turnovers by the Eagles, and the Cowboys converted both of them. Once you get a lead like that, and you're the home team on a Sunday night like that, and you get to play downhill, it's snowballed on Philadelphia. So I really, generally, I like to take a team that got embarrassed on a nationally televised game like a Thursday night game, a Sunday night game, or a Monday game. But I think because Buffalo almost lost to Miami, I'm not going that route. Right now, I'm leaning to the Buffalo side, and I think you'll see the real Buffalo Bills this week. And Philadelphia better figure something out about that secondary. It's going to be a long season. They're going to have to trade points to win games, and that's not the way to do it in the NFL.
Cincinnati on the road, plus 13 against the Rams, total of 48.5. we've seen a big line move already here, Marco. We had a consensus opening line of 10.5, and it's up to 13. And I get it. I mean, Cincinnati's a really bad team. It's too big a number for me. And then I look at the total and I think, I really like the over in this game. So you're looking at a 6-3 ending. I don't know where to go here. I mean, I like the over, but the sidewise is just a complete pass for me right now.
Yeah, throw in the fact, Prez, this is a game in London as well.
Yeah.
So, it's a really long road trip game. It's actually a road trip for
And
both.
the Rams aren't heading there until Thursday.
Yeah, we've had coaches do this different ways. Some of them have even gone in on the Friday, which seems really ridiculous. But it's one of those things, Prez. You talked about the total, and we've seen that the field conditions generally over there are not the best. So that might slow down the Rams offense a little bit. And if you're the Rams, how excited are you getting about Cincinnati in this spot? Cincinnati is still a winless team, and these winless teams, although they look ugly, Prez, they are dangerous because nobody won, there's a big difference between a team that, let's say, is a playoff team year in and year out, and they're sitting at 2-5, questioning their momentum, versus a team that's 0-7 and questioning their momentum. The 0-7 team doesn't want to go winless for the season,
and they have nothing to lose either, right? Like they're
right.
playing.
You can take chances.
Yeah.
If there's a 4th and 2 and it's a 50-50 call whether you should go for it or not go for it, depending where you're at on the field, you're going to be more inclined to take the gamble when you're 0-7. So, and that can work both ways because that can implode on you too. But there's 3 extra points of line value here. The look-ahead line was 9.5. Then the consensus opener was 10.5, and then it's at 12.5 just because of public perception. I can't do it and trust the Rams. What's their motivation to win by a big margin? And remember, McVay was one of those guys that in the preseason didn't play starters. He was worried about the regular season. If he gets up, 3 touchdowns in this game, Prez, does he leave the starters out there playing on that, cow pasture basically over there in London? Todd Gurley, how many touches does he get? We know that, his body's been fragile the last couple years. I think this is a perfect game for the Rams just to get in and get out, especially after the big blowout win on Sunday. I didn't look at the schedule to see who they have up next. If there's, if it's a look-ahead spot, but generally they got a bye week after the London game, so that shouldn't be the issue. I'll look at that real quick here while we're talking. But I can't lay this many points against a winless team that doesn't want to end up the season in this kind of situation winless. So the value is clearly on Cincinnati in this game, but can you get yourself to the window? Could I hold out and hope it gets to 14? It will never get there because the Sharps won't let it get there. After this game, they play the Steelers in Pittsburgh, but that is after their bye week. So no real look-ahead spot for the Rams, but it's just not a spot where I see them going full bore. I could see them getting the big lead and running the football and getting Gurley out of the game.
Arizona going into New Orleans, Marco, and Arizona, look, they won 3 games, but all 3 have been against very, very poor competition. But with that said, Kyler Murray is playing well. His pass completion percentage is really high. He's running around. This Arizona team might be a bit scary. New Orleans minus 9.5. The total is 48.5, and I think this is a bad spot for New Orleans. Obviously, like you mentioned with Sean Payton, they're such a well-coached team. So I don't know if this is, one of those spots where they're going to come out flat. I think we're going to see a good New Orleans team every week. But I don't know. My gut feel tells me that Arizona's the play here.
Yeah, I think Arizona has been continually undervalued. They've exceeded expectations this year. Granted, they've played, 3 bad defenses in a row, Cincinnati, Atlanta, and the Giants. But going to the Giants, who got all of their weapons back yesterday, and had extra time to prepare. Remember, the Giants were coming off that Thursday night game the week before against the Patriots. So they had no excuse there yesterday. And what I find the curious part of this game with the Saints, since Teddy Bridgewater took over, which was the third game of the season at Seattle, that was his first start. He came in the Rams game in week 2. But since then, the lines on the Saints, they, in this 5-game winning streak with Teddy Bridgewater, they've been an underdog 4 times. And the only time they were a favorite, they were only a 3-point favorite at home against Tampa Bay. Now we've got that number where they've got to win and cover, Prez. And I do think this is a trap play, because I think the mindset of the Saints right now is, because they were an underdog in all of those games and a small favorite, is, Vegas isn't giving us any respect, and they had something to prove, especially last week against the vaunted Bears defense, putting up 36 points. It's going to be ugly to do, but I agree with you. The side here is Arizona. I would wait, sitting at 9.5.
Yeah.
If the line comes down, what are you losing at 9?
Yeah, not very much. Couple of percentage points.
Yeah, if it gets not even. If it gets to 10, it's a much better EV play. So hold out on playing Arizona, but I think it does get to 10 when the public gets involved on the weekend, and that would be the side. Arizona, the offense is putting up monster numbers. And Kyler Murray, he had, I think, 4 interceptions at the beginning of the season. He hasn't had any in the last 3 games.
Well, that's because I haven't bet Arizona, Marco. I mean, let's be honest here, brother. Oakland plus 6.5 against Houston. 51.5 is the total. And, Oakland went into Green Bay yesterday, and it was a phony score, Marco. I mean, there was a 14-point swing at the end of the first half. They went it from, I think it would have been 17-10 to 28-10 in the other direction. Oakland is playing tough, man. I think this team is exceeding expectations. Houston with a tough loss yesterday against Indianapolis, and I think Indianapolis really showed some moxie yesterday. Very well-balanced offense. Jacoby Brissett looked really good yesterday. I mean, his numbers are as good as any in the league right now. But Houston lost that game as opposed to Indianapolis winning it. They just kept shooting themselves in the foot over and over and over again. Here they are at home. This division is super tight. I don't think this game, we've got a couple of 7s on the board, but I mean, to me, it's like, if you're going to bet Oakland, I think you should likely bet Oakland now. The over and under is moving as well. So if you're going to bet the over, I think you've already lost some value. But Oakland, if you're betting it, bet now. My gut feel, Marco, is that Houston lays the smackdown. Yeah,
my thing there, and everything you said is true, Prez, in the breakdown, but I'm going to keep looking at this 6.5, and we saw the money come in on Green Bay, in the Green Bay game, on Oakland. That line kept dropping all week long. So right now, based on what this line is, it's 6.5. They're telling you, if we put Green Bay in Houston on a neutral field, they're trying to tell us that Houston would be a favorite over Green Bay. And I'm not sure that I can buy that. So with that said, there looks like there's value with the Oakland side. But I hate to say it, I agree with you. Something smells here.
Yeah.
People are gonna look and say, Houston's laying more than Green Bay laid. Why is that? And I'm never a fan of laying points with Houston and Bill O'Brien as the head coach, because he has a tendency too many times to play to the level of the competition and get a little bit conservative with the lead. Now, the last time that they were a big favorite, not big, but they were minus 5.5 to Carolina. They lost the game outright. And then they were minus 4 to Atlanta and blew them out. But we know the problems that Atlanta has. And earlier in the season, they were minus 7 to Jacksonville. That was the first game that Minshew took over. And they only won that game 13-12.
Yeah.
They got to keep their foot on the gas. And the other part that's a disadvantage to Oakland here is, have you seen their schedule, Prez, of what they have been on? They went to Minnesota, then they went to Indianapolis, then they went to London,
Yeah.
have their bye week, and then they go to Green Bay to Lambeau, and then have to play another road game. This has been a horrible scheduling stretch for Oakland, and that might be part of the reason for the inflated line.
Yeah.
Is because, in essence, it's 5 straight road games. And if you log the actual miles because of the London game, it's insane. But I think the right play here is probably, at 7, use the 6-point teaser, get this down to 1 where Houston just has to win the game. I don't see Oakland going in there and winning, but I can tell you this much. The game, as you said yesterday, Oakland played much better than a 42-24 score would indicate.
Yeah.
In that play that you were talking about, for people that didn't see it, Oakland was going in for a touchdown, and David Carr was, trying to get to the pylon, and he stretched his hand out trying to reach the ball over and hit the pylon. And as he was stretching forward, the ball came out of his hand, and it came out of his hand before he crossed the plane, and it went into the end zone and out. And so instead of a touchdown for the Raiders, it ended up being they got the ball at the 20. And I think it was like the next play or two, Green Bay hit a big pass play, put them down in scoring position, and it was a 14-point turnaround, game over. That was all she wrote right there. So Oakland's playing much better, Prez, than anybody thought they were going to play this year. Everybody thought that the improvement would come next year when they put all these pieces together. But this is an underrated team right now, the Oakland Raiders, and they're buying into Gruden's system.
Marco, 3 late games. Let's talk about them all at the exact same time.
Okay.
Carolina going into San Fran. Carolina coming off of a bye. Total is 41. I get San Fran is a monster right now, 6-7-0, 6-0 on the season. Carolina, as I said, coming off of a bye. I'm going to tell you flat out, Carolina is going to be one of my plays. I'm going to the window with Carolina. Denver going into Indianapolis. Indianapolis off of a ridiculously important win for them. This is one of your sandwich, look-ahead, bad spot games, no doubt. Denver is the play in this one. And Cleveland against New England. We have a 10.5 on the board, even though we haven't seen tonight's game. And I think Cleveland is the play here. I like all 3 dogs in this spot, and I like them a lot.
I will agree with the Denver wholeheartedly, and this will probably be my sandwich game this week on the Bet On It show, because absolutely you can't get a bigger sandwich spot. And then you throw into Denver the situation that I was talking about regarding Philadelphia. You've got Denver coming off as bad of a Thursday night looking game as you could have against Kansas City. Nobody is going to want Denver as bad as they looked on Thursday night in that standalone game. And Prez, I'm going to say to you, and we saw Vegas has already moved the number. The look-ahead line was 4.5, and now it's 6.5 on Indianapolis. And I understand the move wholeheartedly. Denver was horrible, and Indianapolis come out of their bye week in a big game against Houston, big game for the division, and played a monster game. So the move is justified, but it is an overreaction, and it is a horrible spot for Indianapolis coming off it. And I'll tell you this much, Prez, if you're going to move the line from 4.5 to 6.5 because of how bad Denver looked, answer me this, or as I like to say, riddle me this, wise man. Why didn't they just put the 7 up? Why didn't they just go ahead and go the full bore and say, you know what? We're going to put this at 7. You, the public, decides, should this go to 7.5 or should this go to 6.5? And I love when you have the games and they take a stand, Prez, of which side of the fence they want to be on, that key 3 or that key 7, because I never could understand it. If you're a book and your goal is to split the action, okay, in a perfect world, they have, $1 million on this side and $1 million on that side, and they make $100,000 no matter what happens. off the juice. That's in a perfect world. So if that's what you're trying to obtain, why not set a number where you let the market split it for you? Why do you shade it one way or the other? Because they're trying to get you to play one way, in my opinion. So if they shade this to the 6.5, they want you to take Indianapolis. They want Indianapolis under the touchdown. That's the thinking for John Q. So for me, that's another trigger point of why I say Denver's the right side in this game. Denver's definitely going to be something that I'm going to be involved in this week. The Carolina game, I didn't mention it. The 49ers, that was their dead spot last week. That's why I had the sandwich game. It was off the Niners, big game against the Rams, and then you're going to Washington playing the hapless Redskins after 2 monster games in a row. Remember, their game before the Rams game was that Monday night game against Cleveland. So they were entitled to a flat spot, and they did it. Now you'll see the real 49ers. But this Carolina team right now, they're buying into Kyle Allen.
Yeah.
He's undefeated. He's won every start this year, and he won the last start last year.
Yeah.
And if you're Cam Newton, are you wondering what your future is?
Well, here, I'll imitate Cam Newton. Hold on one sec. Ready? Cam Newton imitation. Hi, is Drew Bledsoe there, please? Hi, Drew.
Here's a shot. Do you if he's healthy, do you trade him to a team like Chicago or something that really needs a quarterback that has a team that's got all the pieces but doesn't have a quarterback? I mean, even a injured Cam Newton is an upgrade over Trubisky.
Marco, you're an upgrade over Trubisky. Green Bay against Kansas City. Green Bay -4.5. Matt Moore playing with Kansas City. The total is 48. And Miami on the road playing your Pittsburgh Steelers, -14.5. Well, here's what I know. Pittsburgh doesn't deserve to be -14.5 against anybody, and I already screwed up by not releasing Miami against Buffalo. I like Miami in the spot. And I think this is a tough spot for Green Bay. I think this is one of your typical bad moments for Green Bay. With that said, I can't touch this game. I got to see how Matt Moore is.
Yeah, you're looking at the over, the look-ahead line was actually Kansas City obviously because of Mahomes going out. We've got the monster change in the line. So Vegas is telling us Mahomes is worth 8 points to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's a lot of points here. And so far, the trend has been play the team that first game with the injured quarterback. We've seen Green Bay; they've got their problems in the secondary. Teams are scoring on them. They haven't held anybody in check, and as we said, 24 points they held the Raiders to, but the Raiders should have had 7 more points. Now you're looking at a team that's given up 34 to Philadelphia, 24 to Dallas, 22 to the Lions, 24 to Oakland that should have been 31. Can Matt Moore get enough of an offense generated to keep Kansas City in this game? But on the flip side, I sit there and I look at the Kansas City secondary, and although they had a great game on Thursday, it was against the Broncos, whose offense is not very inventive, and Joe Flacco is like a statue in the pocket right now. Can Kansas City stop Aaron Rodgers? That's a big if there. And do you want to look and say, if it's the system for Kansas City, and I'm not going to even try to compare more to Mahomes in any manner, but if it's still partly the system, not all the quarterback, and I know it's probably 80% the quarterback, but Andy Reid's system, will he generate enough points to get this game to the total? It's still a 48. That's a big number with a backup.
I know, but I mean, both defenses are garbage. Kansas City's defense is a mess, and I mean,
I think they still get over.
it's amazing to me, Kansas City sitting there with the best young quarterback since Brady took over for Bledsoe, one of the best young wide receivers in all of football, a tight end in his prime. It's amazing that they couldn't find 2 first-round draft picks to give to Jacksonville for Jalen Ramsey, but that's a whole different story. Dude, let's call it a show. 45 minutes, 50 minutes in. It's nothing but a pleasure doing this with you every Monday. You're on Friday with Jeff from Oskheim Sports. It's my favorite show of the entire week, so I will speak to you then. Kick ass this week. Good luck in your 5% play tonight, Marco. I know the game. I love it. It's a hockey game. Hope you keep winning in football. You are the anchor of our site, brother, and we love Marco D'Angelo.
I appreciate it, Prez, and good luck to everybody with all their bets this week. I'll talk to you guys Friday.
Be well, everyone.